much not so incorporated into that system of governance, and they're not stakeholders really in the way that decisions are passed. So having a student board member who's involved in district decisions, and just like for all of you who don't know what our responsibilities are, like we attend all the board meetings and we give our advice and counsel on specific board member measures. We can pass policy, like I'm sure we've all done things like this. So it's really important. And in my district specifically, we had lots of like scandal and turmoil involving our superintendent. And it would have been very helpful if there was a student on the ground who was able to mitigate that, and it would have come to the board a lot sooner. There's like real life applications to having a student involved. So I don't know.
Thank you for those responses. They were amazing as always. So for me, serving for the student board member position is an amazing experience, and it's something that I wanted to do in order to include our student body into all the discussions that we have honestly been a part of. And because of the student board member position, it has been an opportunity for me to go into these meetings with a perspective of inclusivity and with that perspective of equity for everyone. It's an amazing thing to be able to be a part of it, and it's an amazing experience to take back to our student body so that they make sure that they are heard with every concern, with every perspective, and with every viewpoint that they are sharing with us.
Yes, for me, I think as well, agreeing with everyone, my role, I specifically focus on trying to voice the concerns of my constituents, of the students of Los Angeles, and specifically as a student of color and, coming from a minority community, I think it's super important for a voice like mine to represent the majority of Los Angeles, because majority of Los Angeles, I think is very culturally diverse. So I think having a culturally diverse voice on the board is really crucial to representing the board policies and board items that we pass on our board.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'd love for you, you kind of touched on this a little bit about the importance and necessity of student voice. You're a lone representative coming into an adult space that really is dominated by adults. Share a little bit about that experience.
I guess I can start on this one. I think that a lot of times student board members, in my experience, are used as tokens to like tokenize the student representation. We have a student on our board, so that means that we care about student voice and their decisions. So like students have to feel empowered by the adults around them to be able to take a stand in their own decisions. I know for like my board, for example, is a split board, partisan-wise, which I don't know why partisan politics is involved in school boards, but like I hold a very important role in being able to speak to both sides and like understand where they're coming from, so I have direct sway over decisions that are being made. So that's to the point with adults, like they have to be able to tell us that our voice is important, because if it's not, you just sit there and they'll tell you to go home and do your homework. Like I've been told that at board meetings, and it's like that's such a wrong thing to say to someone who's trying to uplift their own community. So adults have a very pertinent role in uplifting students. So I don't know.
For me, it was special because I was elected by, some student board members are appointed by adults who choose them, but I was elected by the entire student population of my district. So I think I was also told, if you ever get busy, you could go home, leave early, and do your homework. And so I think something that adults forget about student board members is that, at least for me, I was chosen just like they were chosen by their adult parent constituents to serve on the school board. And then without me, students aren't getting their voice represented. Because if you think about it, the education system is really about student outcomes and helping students. So why are there no students making the decisions? The student board member is the only role that students can hold to help influence decision making in a school district. And I want to tell, I think, just out of my experience serving as a student board member, the one thing that was most frustrating to me was sometimes I would tell staff, oh, there are no menstrual products in our bathroom, or oh, this is supposed to be there, but it's not. And they would be like, oh, just check again. Like, it should be there, like that's the law. And then I would have to take pictures of the empty menstrual dispensers, show it to them before they finally restocked like the menstrual dispensers at my school, and that's just one example because there are multiple other instances. So I wish that adults, if you're gonna have the student board member position, I wish that they would take our word for the things we say the first time they hear it, instead of us having to repeat ourselves 2 or 3 times before they finally do what should have been done in the first place. Yeah.
That hits home of this, you feeling like you're having to establish your credibility in a different way through bringing it up over and over and over again versus the belief and trust. I'm raising this because it's actually an issue, and I need you to hear me. Go ahead, Emily or Jimena.
Thank you. It is a really big issue. From my experience, this has been a unique and rewarding opportunity. From the adults that I surround myself with to every opportunity with the students, I have been heard every single time, and it is something that is an immense privilege, and it's something that I do not take for granted. I know all of our previous and our future student board members are very grateful for that, and it is because of this possibility, it's because of this opportunity that we have always been able to freely express ourselves. When it comes to meetings that we hold at our school, our students are surrounded by district members, trustees, and people who really care for their opinion, and they are heard every single time, and this is something that is brought to me, and they are very grateful for that as well. So I appreciate that. It does become challenging when you start to think of your experience in comparison to theirs, and when it starts to kind of become a thing of, will I be able to say the right thing? Will I be able to bring up the right thing? Is it going to be justified? Is it going to be heard? But I appreciate that it is every single time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everyone. I think that because I was actually the first student elected onto the LA County Office of Education. So since 2022 or before 2022, there was never a student on this board. So coming in with that new like fresh perspective was, I think, very impactful for the adults in the room as well, because they had never really sat next to a student and have them share their opinion on different policies. So being able to be that new voice, that new perspective was I was very honored to do that and be able to represent for the first time my peers. And I think that also as a student, I've learned so much from the adults as well in the boardroom, because I sit with these adults and they're super experienced, and they have like the doctorates, and being a high school student, I just learned so much from them and how they public speak and all their leadership skills. So it's a very interesting and super cool opportunity for me, just to learn so much from them. And then now I get to share these new skills that I learned to the rest of my peers at my own school, and just share these new leadership skills to the students around me as well.
I don't know if you caught one of the things that she just said that is more of an aside and maybe just a little bit of a plug, but one of the things, Jimena, that stuck out to me, and you all know how your boards operate, but she's learning from watching the adults. And I just think about boards and some of the discussions and the way in which boards have been engaging over the course of the last 5 years, especially after the pandemic. And I think, Jimena, thank you for bringing that to light. I hope you guys don't mind, but I want to ask you a question that actually wasn't one of our questions. And if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But you've highlighted some things that adults have done that and I'm putting my words to it, so push back if you felt a little bit differently, but inadvertently you felt dismissed. So the comment that I heard you saying was, well, if you need to leave early to go do your homework, then you can, which we would never excuse another board member because work's busy. And some comments that are made in that sense. I'm wondering if there are also some things, and you have an audience of adults who either have board members or are considering having board members, that was really, really helpful that the adults did, that empowered you or gave you voice or made you feel like I belong here and my voice is valued. And Emily, you touched on a little bit by saying when you would bring things up, it was taken seriously. It wasn't something that you necessarily felt like you had to justify. You felt heard. And so it makes you feel stronger coming into that position to be able to push things even farther. So I'm wondering from the rest of you, what are some things that have been really positive?
Yeah, I actually felt like sorry for going into it kind of negatively for the last
Oh,
question.
don't apologize.
Because overall,
Critical feedback's good. Yeah.
overall, I did have a very, very positive experience as a student board member, and I felt like my superintendent supported me far more than a lot of other student board members I've spoken to before. So one thing that he would do would be to meet with me every single week. Every single week there was a board meeting and explain the agenda to me, just like he would do for the adult board members, so that I understood everything we were going to discuss. And he was also very open to any policy ideas that I had. And the last thing I did before leaving office was rewrite one of our district bylaws so that the student board member could receive compensation. And he helped me edit and bring that to the board. He talked with every board member individually on my policy, and then that policy ended up passing. So in the future, all the student board members in my district are gonna get 70% of what the adult board members are paid.
It's amazing.
And that's just adjusted for the time they don't spend in closed session. So as of right now, it's like a $4,000 stipend, which is so important. I
Yeah,
think.
that's right. Yeah. Yep.
Because student board members, they have to go to college. I mean, their time is spent in the
It's
boardroom,
valuable.
just like adult board members spend their time in the boardroom. So
That's
yeah,
right.
that was like one of the biggest things I did during my term.
Love it.
This is funny. I used Annika's board policy to pass the same thing in my district like a year later. But no need. I was just saying, the reason why we think that that's so important and we would like to get that out to as many boards is because, like, I come from a pretty privileged background that I was able to spend all these additional hours not working and not being compensated and instead representing my fellow students. There are students who don't have that opportunity and who need to be compensated for their time as if they were working a real job, which it is a real job. So that's why we thought that that was so important. And I have also had a really positive experiences with adults on my board in general. And one of the big things that I think is super supportive is I'm a kid. If a kid comes to you and asks you a question about finances or budget, to not like dismiss. Like, there are obviously jargon that students aren't going to understand as a student board member, but there are board members who also don't understand the jargon.
Yeah,
I can
that's right.
assure you. So I think in those cases, like, as an adult, you have to be open to answering questions, especially as staff, and to not say, oh, you don't need to worry about it. Because you do need to worry about it. I need to know if counselors are going to be cut. That's something that's important to me. It's like, yeah.
Thank you for those responses. I think one of the main priorities for our students is taking the time to meet with them. They appreciate the fact that our superintendent comes to every student voice meeting for all 3 of our high schools. He is there, he is present, and at the end of the meetings, we have a superintendent time dedicated to him just talking to our students. They mentioned so many amazing things, so many possibilities, so many concerns that they're wondering about, and so many questions that they have, whether it's something we talk about in our board meetings or whether it's something that they see on campus. And every single time it is heard, and it is also brought up maybe at the board meetings. It's brought up in private conversations, and it's something that they value very, very much. It's something that I take into consideration every single time that I talk to the students, because now they are coming to me with questions, with concerns, but they know that it will be backed up eventually. And if not, they know that they are in an open space where they can come back to it, and it will be appreciated and valued every single time, whether it's maybe at a board meeting where I can talk to our superintendent and have a private conversation with him, and he is assuring me that my ideas are amazing and they will be put into action, and we just need to take a different process through it. It's having questions while people are doing the reports on finances or budgeting, whatever it is. Our student trustees and our student board members, everything that they ask is responded to, and everything that they want to hear is something that they put much attention towards. So I thank them for that.
Yeah, I think that for me, because again, like I stated before, since being the first student elected onto this board, there wasn't another student board member that I can go back and like ask them for advice on certain topics. So they were very supportive of that, and they knew that because I was the first one, they had to, be that support system for me. So they were always giving me, certain advice, learning how to like motion items on the board. They would always encourage me to do so. And specifically for our board agendas, the board secretary would take the time out of their week to meet with me and explain to me all the different policies that we're going through and the different recommendations. So everyone on the board has been very supportive of me and my journey as a student board member, and they're always there, and I know I can count on them whenever I have a concern.
Thank you all for sharing those stories and some, I think, really concrete and tangible ways in which the adults can support you and make you feel like you're valued and important in this space. I want to give you all a little bit of a chance to toot your own horn and own your success and share the policies that you've brought forward or have supported that have been really near and dear to your heart. And Annika, I know you shared one already, but I know that's not the only one that you've also worked on, but would love to hear from you about those pieces too.
I can go. So something very dear to me has been when I first came to my high school, because I attend an arts specialized high school, so it's specific to, you have to audition to enter to the high school. So it's different in that way. It's not really a typical high school. And we have film, dance, music, and like visual arts. But when I first came to the high school as a freshman, I entered like as a film major, and I noticed that I was the only Hispanic student in the room studying film, which to me was very concerning because living in Los Angeles is a very diverse city and county. So just not seeing that same racial demographic being reflected into my high school was something concerning. And so when I entered my position as a student board member, that was one of the main issues that I focused on. And so I would constantly mention this, seeing that I would see constantly to my board members, and they worked with me to establish a diversity committee, which would decrease the racial demographic gap between LA County and our specialized schools. So I, as a student board member, alongside the rest of the adult board members, we worked on different strategies that would increase the diversity in both our arts high school and our STEM high school, so we can have we can open these high schools to more diverse group of students, so they can also have the opportunity to take special courses in arts and special STEM courses, for example. So to me, that was super important, and I was really happy to take part of that work and take part of increasing the diversity within our specialized schools.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
I have not had the opportunity to pass any policies that are very specific to something that I have created on my own, but something that I do work with a lot with our student board members and our adult board members is mental health. Mental health, whether it's for students, whether it's for adults, whether it's for anyone that is here living, breathing, it is an amazing thing to kind of encourage the students to speak on it, to find their space, to find that comfort. We have been working alongside Madera County Mental and Behavioral Health to bring in transportation. It's a mobile unit, which the students are going to be able to transform into anything that they want, whether it's a mental health unit, whether it's something for all of our blood drives that we have. It's very important to me that they acknowledge they are being heard and they are being seen, and that their mental health is taken very seriously. We are always stressed out on little things, and it's important to have that safety and that security. All of our board members have been very, very open to it, and they have been very, very insistent on the fact that we should be taken into consideration when it comes to mental health, as well as our teachers, our staff, our administration, everyone that comes with it.
Yeah, that's right. Round of applause too for Emily for your focus on student mental health. Thank you, Emily.
I think a lot of the policy that I've worked on has mainly related to like environmental things with our district, because my district is quite large. We have like 7 high schools and 35,000 students, so we produce a lot of waste and use a lot of energy. So I've passed policy about like integrated waste management and like helping to mitigate those consequences. But outside of policy, I think something important with having a student board member is there are conversations that occasionally get brought up about banning books and what do we do about the trans problem. Like, these are things that as a student board member, you can't allow to gain an inch on your board. Like, you very much have to be vigilant when you're talking about policy that's being passed. And having a student there, this is kind of gonna sound funny, it makes the adult board members sometimes feel more ashamed to have to talk about their ideas in front of a student that it's gonna be affecting. Like, you wanna ban the books in my library and you're talking about this in front of me? And not a lot of students show up to board meetings, so it's important just to have my eyes there. Like, yes, feel what you're doing. So.
I just want to add on to what Sinead said. Not a lot of students show up to board meetings, so I knew as a student board member, I wanted to let students know that you can show up to board meetings. So I don't know, if like anyone's ever been in a board meeting, sometimes when the public comes and there's like 20 people lined up to make public comment, like your heart starts racing and you're like, anything I say, like all these people are gonna hear it and they're already angry. So I wanted other students, like after a while, after like the first 3 months, I'm like, oh, I can't do this on my own anymore. And I knew that there were students in my district that wanted to make change. They just didn't know how to. So I had a few students come to me with ideas. They were like, I want to improve my school. One of them wanted to transition our school to our school district to a zero waste school district, zero waste to landfill. One of them wanted to write an AI policy to regulate AI use in our school district, and one of them wanted like better mental health facilities. And then I taught them how to write resolutions for school districts. So they wrote it, and at the end of the year, the mental health one is still being considered right now, but we passed both the zero waste to landfill resolution and the AI use policy resolution in our district. And I think that that wasn't something that I could have done on my own. I couldn't have written like 3 resolutions and passed them all. But sharing the power and letting the students know, you have to print out a copy of the resolution to bring to the board meeting. You have to email the board members in this way. Sharing that power, it's just shared governance. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. So I'm going to ask one more question, Annika and Sinead, and this one will be for you about NSBMA. But while I ask that question, we want to be able to open it up for a couple of minutes for 1 or 2 questions that you might have for our panelists. So I'm giving you all, audience, think time, what you might want to hear from them. And then Emilio, I don't know where he is, perfect, right over there. He'll bring a microphone so that we can all hear you. But Annika and Sinead, you've had a unique experience in being part of NSBMA. Tell me just a little bit, pretty concisely, so that we can get to the audience too. What has that experience been like for you, and how has that been valuable as you've navigated that space as a student board member?
Last year, I served as the National Policy Director for NSBMA, so I researched the student board member policies in different states, and I even helped, I even co-wrote like this new policy for the Nevada state legislature to consider. So it was a really fun experience to be able to, it was mostly like research focused and just know like the state of student board members, not just in California, but across the country.
For NSBMA on the side, on the receiving end, how it's helpful, I would have had no idea what to do without them. Like, as a student board member, if you don't have support, they throw you into the wolves' den, truly. And they don't tell you anything. They don't tell you how board meetings run. They don't tell you how to pass motions. They don't tell you anything. So NSBMA really helped me begin to understand my role and like empower myself to be able to speak out on issues that I care about.
Can I do a quick plug for
Yes,
NSBMA?
100%.
All right,
please.
so at the beginning, there weren't that many hands up when I asked like how many people have student board members. NSBMA has actually developed a standard policy that could be applied to, like slightly edited, but applied to all school districts if you are considering having a student board member. So I don't know about contact information or whatever, but
Oh, yeah. If you're interested, reach
in
out.
having a student
Yep.
board member, we have a policy for you. It's completely legal in California, and it's actually required if your more than 500 students in your district sign a petition for your district to instate a student board member onto the board. So if anyone is interested in that, NSBMA can definitely help with getting a student board member onto your board.
Awesome. The one other thing that I'll say that I heard both of you say in the podcast was the community. like being able to connect with other student board members across the nation, and hearing both of you talk about the power in that, and also being able to see some of the commonalities in student experiences and across the state, regardless of political affiliation. Differences, yes, but some commonalities too. Okay, I hope you've all had time to think. Would love to give you the opportunity now to ask one or two questions that you might have for our panelists. I see someone right over here.
Okay, I don't mean to disappoint, but I have more an observation and a comment. I want to say first and foremost, I'm super inspired today, but all of you young leaders, I can only imagine what you're going to do in your lifetime. I had the honor of sitting in one of the breakout sessions, and I was in a table with Jimena, and I don't know if your mom, is she in here right now? Jimena's mom. I want to say I was so inspired to see her mom here. I think something that leaders don't talk about is that your motivation starts at home, many times in your childhood, whether your culture, whether it be for the good or the right reasons, but that's what really motivates you to step into community. So seeing Jimena's mom here really moved me. She's told me she's been here since yesterday. And, the rest of the families that support you, I think that oftentimes we don't give credit to the families at home, even if there's a language barrier. Así que gracias por estar aquí y apoyar a Jimena. Sé que en su vida esto es mucho para ella que está aquí. That was just my comment. Thank you.
Anyone else? A question that you might have for one of our panelists?
I'm actually going to piggyback on what you offered. As a parent, what can I do to help my young daughter who is really wanting to make change in her school? How can I help her have access to the information you have and empower her to be such a strong leader as I'm seeing on the stage?
That's a great question.
It depends on the school district you live in. Often, like Shanae said, sometimes there's like bipartisan politics in school boards, which there shouldn't be. But for my school district, I found it was relatively easy for students to be introduced to different committees. So not the actual school board itself, but if your daughter is interested in a certain topic, most school districts have an English learner committee, an equity committee, the LCAP committee, the budget committee. So I think that reaching out to staff or the student board member, if there is a student board member, and getting if your daughter is, I don't know how old your daughter is, but in high school, a lot of high schoolers can sit on these committees. And it's just a very simple, like kind of non-controversial way for student representation to be implemented.
Yeah, good way to push in if that's not there. That's a great idea.
Well, on that note, if you have a student board member in your district, and if not, you should get one. But if you have a student board member in your district, you can always reach out to your student board member. I know from my own experiences, lots of the policies that I brought forth are like students have come up to me and been like, I've been seeing this around my campus. I need you to fix this. And speaking from a student board member perspective, we are totally open to that, and we want to help you make change. And there's also like superintendent advisory councils. There's many ways to get involved, especially in your own district. So it's great that you're trying.
I actually want to touch on something that was mentioned, and it was said that everything starts at home. So I would like to thank you for asking that question. It shows how much you care about your student. It shows how much you care about your daughter as a person. I want to say that you are already doing amazing, but just for that inclusion, just so that you can support her and so that everything goes the way that you would honestly like it to go, so that she feels included. Everything is supporting her, having that support system at home, having just the courage to tell them, hey, you're doing amazing. Maybe this is something that you would want to look into. And if, again, you have a student board member within your district, it's something that you can encourage them, hey, maybe talk to them, maybe try and see how you can get involved, going to those board meetings, but everything's starting at home. Just have that support system for them. That foundation is already set.
I think, yes, I definitely agree with them. I think just having that, support system and encouraging them with whatever they want to do. And, maybe if they do want to become student board members, just involve them with, their local district, and just like, Emily said, to just encourage them to attend board meetings or participate in specific like superintendent committees, which a lot of superintendents have that are open to their district, and they like allow their students to just come in and talk about any concerns they see in their schools or district. But even if maybe they don't want to be student board members and they want to do something else, maybe like, I don't know, anything else, a debate or anything, I think just being there for them and having that support system and always telling them that, they're doing great and that, they should continue doing what they love is the most important thing.
Thank you so much for your bravery, courage, persistence, tenacity in the work that you're doing locally, but also coming and sharing with us. Can we give them a round of applause?